The FBI estimates that roughly 66,768 people in America are injured every year as a result of gun violence. And on March 5th, 2015, my father became one of those people. It was a typical Thursday night at my house. I could hear my dad on the front porch about to come in from taking in the trash. It was very cold. The ground was iced over. There was a bang. Not how I'd imagine the sound of a gunshot. The sound was more like a door slamming. I ran to the front door to find my mom bent over my father's form, clear in the light of the street lamp. "Call 911, she screamed when she saw me. "Dad's been shot." I don't remember talking to the 911 operator, but I do remember my mom coming inside, grabbing the phone from my hands, trying to stop from speaking hysterically. Somehow, I found myself out on that snow-covered porch. What I saw was my dad, lying down with a small hole in his right leg, just above his knee. He was moaning and gritting his teeth, clearly in a great deal of pain. I knelt and grabbed his hand. He squeezed it tight, and I tried not to let my voice waver as I said, "You look good, Dad. You'll be okay. Everything will be okay." While all I thought was that nothing would be okay. On that night, I learned what it meant to have courage. And not just because I kept my head in a scary situation, but because of the weeks and months following the incident. I witnessed my mom tell the many reporters and journalists that this was not just another reason to hate Detroit. That the only way Detroit would ever change would be if people like my parents were willing to stand up to crime. I saw courage in my community when the people at my church came together to help my dad when he was in the hospital and during his long recovery. I see immense courage in my dad to this day, who has worked tirelessly to ensure that he is now walking as well as ever. From this experience, I learned that guns, criminals, hatred, and violence don't match up against friends, prayers, home-cooked meals, and love. I wish that everyone in this country, especially our politicians and lawmakers, could have the same courage to stand up to violence which I have seen in my parents and friends over the past year. Every time there is a mass shooting in this country, there are cries for gun reform. And inevitably, when the media starts covering something else, the voices of those killed and injured seem to disappear, and the public turns away. The courage that we need to end gun violence shouldn't just be coming from the victims. It should be coming from everyone. I am calling for radical gun reform, and I am calling for our senators and representatives to start doing what they know to be right. So in a few months, I will be 18, which means if I wanted to, I could purchase a fully automatic weapon with extended magazines and specialized ammunition designed specifically to kill people more effectively. I've only recently started to drive. I can't even legally rent a car, yet I can own a machine capable of massacring a crowd. This seems a little backwards to me, which is why I'd like to propose 5 succinct and realistic gun control laws. Number 1, classes for gun owners. If guns were as regulated as much as cars, then in order to buy and carry a gun, customers would have to undergo supervised training at their own expense. Our society doesn't allow teenagers on the road without knowing they know how to drive safely. Why would we allow them to buy guns without knowing they know how to handle them properly? Classes could include gun safety training and would be required for the purchase of any type of gun. Number 2, assault weapons ban. It's not hard to argue that these weapons are unnecessary for a citizen's self-defense. There was an assault weapons ban in this country created in 1994, but it was lifted in 2004. Since then, these weapons have been used in more than half of all mass shootings. Picture Adam Lanza, a young man who killed his mother, stole her Bushmaster M4 type carbine, and proceeded to kill 27 adults and children at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Now, many aspects of what Lanza did and intended to do on December 14, 2014 remain unclear. But it is clear that if the assault weapons ban of 1994 had still been in effect then, there's a good chance the tragedy could have been avoided altogether. Number 3, ammunition limitation. There should be limits on how much, as well as what type of ammunition a person should be able to buy. Unless you believe your house is going to be attacked by an army anytime soon, there is no reason to hoard thousands of rounds of ammunition. It should certainly be illegal to own specialized ammunition, designed to pierce bulletproof vests and armored cars, something your average citizen is rather unlikely to have. Number 4, gun zoning laws. Guns are more dangerous depending on where they are. Just last summer, there was a story on the news about a young boy in Detroit named Jakari Pearson, who died when a stray bullet came in through his wall and hit him in the head during a criminal shootout happening just outside. I've lived in the city my whole life, and I can say that this is not a novel story. We want an end to violence, and we especially want an end to violence that affects children and other innocent people. Violent crime is much more common in densely populated areas, which is why gun control must be the strongest there. And finally, number 5, government endorsement of something called smart guns. From 2005 to 2010, 3,100 Americans were killed as a result of accidental shootings, a statistic which quickly dismisses the claim that guns don't kill people. Smart guns are a type of gun which require wearing a watch or ring with a computerized chip inside that allow the weapon to be fired. Imagine legislation requiring that all newly manufactured firearms include this smart gun technology. Not only would this reduce the amount of accidental shootings by children and others who do not own the gun, it would prevent criminals from stealing these guns from homes and using them for their own purposes. These laws are the most important aspects of gun control, and with their adoption, the amount of gun violence in this country would soon be radically reduced. I have often heard it said that owning a gun is about more than just safety. It's about freedom. A person's right, which extends beyond the control of the government to the natural rights of humankind. I'll address this argument for just a moment. Let's talk about freedom. You see, when a bullet enters your life, it takes a long list of things away from you, one of them being freedom. Where was my dad's freedom when he had to spend 6 months recovering from something that should have never happened to him and should never happen to anyone? Where was my freedom when I had to talk to school counselors, when I kept and keep having dreams about what happened that night, when I couldn't focus on my schoolwork or anything else? What about the freedom of the parents of the kids killed at the Sandy Hook massacre, who trusted that they could see their children grow up in this great nation without the fear of them being killed in their own school? What about my dad's shooter and every other criminal in this country who has grown up in a poor neighborhood, been given an inadequate education, and been taught that violence is the only solution to their problems? Where was their freedom during all of that? How about the natural rights of humankind to not be shot on their own front porch, to not be killed in their own school, to be given a good education, to be paid a fair wage, and to be treated with basic human dignity and respect? So to the NRA, and anyone else who believes that it is their right to own a gun, try to respect those freedoms, and then I will try to respect yours. Because ultimately, gun control is not about taking guns away from people. It is about building a safe and just society in which all of us can be free from fear.